You entered the world as raw possibility, a question mark in boots, laughing at the horizon's dare. For a while you expanded like sunrise, but inch by inch you compressed yourself to fit the silhouette she could hold without trembling. You were once wilderness-wearing skin, directed only by instinct and the scent of distant thunder. Slowly and almost politely, you let her comfort outrank your curiosity until the wildness dimmed like a lantern in bright noon. The cost was invisible at first, paid in faint compromises that felt polite instead of perilous. Jean-Paul Sartre, scribbling in a Paris quaking with war and revolution, warned that hell is other people, not because they carry pitchforks, but because their gaze can become a cell. You believed love was a refuge, yet in her eyes you volunteered for imprisonment under soft sheets. The iron bars were woven from approval, and you kissed each one as if it were a medal. You never opened being and nothingness, yet its thesis seeped into every yes you muttered against your own rhythm. Bad faith slid through the door each time you edited your truth to make her breathing easier. By the time you noticed, your autobiography had been redrafted in someone else's handwriting. Consciousness, Sartre insisted, is a blank skyline aching for architecture that only choice can supply. Forget that, and you chase completion in another's arms, handing over the compass of your becoming. Trade the steering wheel of your soul, and you are surprised when she tires of driving your borrowed car. A woman, whether 19 and ruled by impulse or 45 and fluent in emotional calculus, senses when you crown her emperor of your identity. Biology, older than romance, rebels at such captivity, pressing her to flee even as she wishes she could stay. Desire cannot thrive where freedom has been smothered for decorum's sake. Captive passion gasps like a bird in velvet gloves, beautiful but suffocating. It needs wind, risk, and altitude to burn bright. Offer it a padded perch, and it drifts into coma. The young man thinks loyalty is a currency purchasable with endless declarations and urgent emojis. He has not yet worn the red-cheeked shame of pouring everything out while her attention drifts like incense smoke. Innocence believes intensity will bribe permanence. The older man knows better from the silent ache beside the woman who once reached for him before he auditioned to be safe. Consistency became his camouflage, and she lost interest in spotting him. Predictability anesthetized the electricity she once chased. She never craved safety, she craved sovereignty colliding with sovereignty like weather fronts. Your neat edges dulled the lightning she hoped would split the sky. She wanted the mountain, and you flattened into a hill she could name. Sartre's shocking truth is that the heart longs for what refuses possession. The man, free enough to approach and depart with equal ease, forces her to stare into her own unfurnished spaces. That mirror is terrifying, which is precisely why it magnetizes. You have seen him. The man who speaks sparingly loves sparingly, yet burns into memory like comet residue. He is not gaming, he simply will not mortgage his essence for applause. Presence becomes charisma when it refuses to beg. To want love is human. To need it for identity is disappearance. Leaning that hard leaves nothing standing when the wind shifts. Bare rafters do not inspire devotion. Existential integrity begins where need ends. Stand first, choose first, define first, and let affection orbit if daring enough. Should it flee, your gravity remains intact. The rare Sartrean man wears solitude like a well-tailored coat rather than a prison uniform. He paid the toll of isolation and found the road beyond leads only to himself. That discovery is intoxicating in a culture obsessed with crowds. You were taught to unbutton your psyche at her feet, bleeding honesty as proof of trustworthiness. Yet the more pages you surrendered, the duller the mystery gleamed. Transparency without discernment turns diamonds to glass. A human is a project, not a souvenir, forever under construction. Offer your unfinished scaffolding as a final tour, and you confuse confession with presence. She cannot desire a blueprint already photocopied and approved. Sartre called authentic freedom being for itself, an existence that refuses to warp into someone else's blueprint. Vulnerability is not dumping, it is standing unsheltered without begging for a forecast. That difference is seismic. Silence frightens the untested but steadies the seasoned. Words can be armor, yet absence of words can be gravity. The strongest rooms are often the quietest. Consider the older man at the bar, weathered like driftwood, radiating calm that stretches beyond conversation. He doesn't chirp corrections into the noise because he no longer needs to be right to be real. His stillness rearranges furniture you didn't know was movable. Young men mistake volume for voltage, filling every pause with noise as though silence were a verdict. Older, awake men cultivate emptiness as resonance, knowing Earth's pull is voiceless. Echoes matter more when the cave is vast. She labels it danger, but it is difference, ontological difference that cannot be bargained down. She provokes the mass to see whether it compresses into diamond or crumbles to powder. That test is older than language. Chase, plead, over-explain, and you evaporate from mountain to mist. Stand and she confronts her own freedom's weight. Only then can desire draw breath again. This is geometry, not cruelty. The mountain remains unmoved, and climbers respect what does not stoop. Gentleness without backbone becomes mush, not mercy. Depth needs rock to echo. Remember this the next time compliance beckons like a lullaby. She does not crave a man who needs her for oxygen. She desires a man inhaling deeply in her absence. Anything less dries attraction like sun on morning dew. Authenticity, once reclaimed, shines like a lantern no fog can smother. She registers that radiance in the oldest part of her nervous system. It bypasses logic and whispers ancient permission. Betrayal of self begins with invisible yeses your marrow never authorized. That polite treachery is Sartre's mauvaise foi, the moment a free man lies to avoid freedom's discomfort. Silence would have screamed truth louder. She notices even when she cannot name it. Her grief is not for you, but for the man she met before you began rehearsing obedience. Nobody mourns the echo. They mourn the vanished voice. Predictability is chloroform for passion. She didn't fall for constancy. She fell for the unpredictable orbit of your independent soul. Safety is a pleasant suburb, but desire thrives in mountains. Some nights, older men admit, they no longer recognize the boy who once stared at galaxies with fire in his chest. Years of providing erased the star hunter behind the accountant's mask. Yet confession can be a door rather than a grave. Age need not shrink manhood. It can distill it to high-proof clarity if you quit embalming yourself in lies. The threshold back to authenticity stands exactly where you ceased walking. Step forward. The elegant lie is that her love is the prize. The prize is the self that remains undivided whether love stays or goes. Collect that trophy and you can host or wander without losing the ground beneath your feet. Paradox proclaims that you become most desirable the moment you stop submitting audition tapes. Few remain silent long enough to learn its dialect. The uncomfortable hush is where your accent matures. The unforgettable man stays standing when storms arrive, not to prove dominance, but because he refuses to counterfeit his heartbeat. His calm is not a tactic, it is a birthplace. She senses the difference. Presence that needs no outcome changes the physics of every room. Some will resent the pressure drop, yet others inhale deeper. Reality displaces pretense with or without permission. Your arrival ends the script of chase and begins the scripture of still, wordless thunder. Everything ahead unfolds from that hush, not from strategy. Let the world decide its reaction. You have already chosen yours. Self-sovereignty, existentialism, masculine integrity, Sartre wisdom, authentic living, relationship dynamics, personal freedom, philosophy, in life, inner strength, mindset shift, self-sovereignty, Sartre, existentialism explained, masculine energy, authentic living, relationship advice for men, freedom in love, personal development, philosophical motivation, bad faith, a hard-hitting dive into Sartre's call to radical self-authorship and why the man who needs no approval is the one the world, and she, can never forget. Watch and reclaim the freedom that turns silent presence into unstoppable gravity.